as amended. Councillor Gilliland, second by Councillor Kim. We need 2/3. Using your tabulator. Yeah. Councillor, did you want to vote on it? We're just voting on approving the agenda as amended. It's up to you. Thank you. That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Community presentations. We have one. Leslie Yates, Canadian Cancer Society Real Life for Life Committee. And I believe Councillor Bob Quapis is going to come up and speak first. Bob? Do we have 5 or 10 minutes for it? 5?
Council, I'm here today to promote Relay for Life. My name is Bob Quapis from Town of Newmarket. Town of Newmarket has Pickering College, and the event is taking place at Pickering College. Therefore, I thought it would be appropriate for me as a representative of Town of Newmarket to come over here and invite all the municipalities to participate in Relay for Life. So as I mentioned, we are here to encourage all neighboring municipalities to not just participate, but to promote this great event and encourage you to take part as well. So after the deputation by Leslie Yates and Mr. John Dawson, I would encourage that we take a picture as a council and encourage you to share on your social media webpage, wherever you think is appropriate to share the information. And at this time, I would like to pass the microphone over to Ms. Leslie Yates to do the actual deputation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mayor and Council, thanks very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name's Leslie Yates, and I'm a co-chair with the Canadian Cancer Society Relay for Life. And this is our 16th year of Relay in our local community, and it's being held, as Bob said, at Pickering College on June the 21st from 6 p.m. until midnight. And at Relay, teams gather together in order to celebrate and to remember people who have had cancer. Throughout the evening, there's activities and entertainment, all local, and food, of course, and team members take turns walking around the track. And the evening is largely focused on the survivors of cancer who are invited to attend. Pardon me, and John is one of those survivors, and he's going to speak in a couple of minutes. So the event is held at night, and it's a symbolic representation of a person once they're diagnosed with cancer, and then going through the treatment and then on to recovery. So that's the symbolism for the evening walk. I joined Relay 14 years ago. At that time, a friend as well as a colleague were both diagnosed with breast cancer. Both had to have double mastectomies, and both had to go through the long and very painful treatment process. And since that time, in those 14 years, I've lost my father, an uncle, 2 close friends, as well as one of our original Carey's Place team members. So when that colleague was diagnosed, we formed a Carey's Place team, and that's how I started, and every year I've had a team since. The funds that are raised through the Canadian Cancer Society Relay stay primarily local, and in 2018, that meant that over almost 6,000 rides were provided to medical appointments in York Region to over 180 clients. That 86 volunteer drivers drove over 300,000 kilometers. And despite that huge volunteer effort, the program still costs $93,000 to administer. In addition to that, there are currently 15 clinical trials being held right at our own South Lake Regional Health Center, and again, in order to support people locally who are diagnosed with cancer. So as Bob mentioned, our ask of you is that you form a team of council, if that's at all possible, or join with councillors in other municipalities and form a team. There's also an opportunity, as we know you're very busy people, to have virtual teams and do your fundraising online. We have sponsorship opportunities, of course, and again, as Bob mentioned, what we would really like is for you to promote and communicate with whatever vehicles you have on social media about the relay. So I'm just going to pass it on to Bob, or to John, pardon me.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. It's a little sciatica problem. That's why the canes are. My name's John Dowson. I'm a cancer survivor. Been involved in the relay for about 15 years. And my story is, in 1983, I had an ultrasound for my colon in prep for a colonoscopy. And in the afternoon, my doctor's office phoned me and said, your tests are in. The doctor would like to see you to discuss them. Can you come in at 4:30? I said, yeah. And 4 days before Christmas, I walked into my doctor's office. I was still standing, and he said, you've got a tumor in your kidney. We booked you for surgery January 25th. Who do you want to do it? I was stunned. I hadn't even sat down. I gave him a name of a urologist I knew, and on January 25th, 1994, my left kidney was removed. Cancer hadn't spread.
Mr. Dawson, if you just hold for a second. Council,
is that one of ours?
Yeah, but I'm just going to, Council, yeah, Councilor Gilliland, Councilor Humphreys, all those in favor? Opposed? Go ahead, sorry, just procedure.
Oh, okay. The cancer hadn't spread, and early detection meant that I didn't have to have chemotherapy. I continued to have colonoscopies every year, and I also did something called a stool sample every 6 months. People maybe know about that. And in 2006, my stool sample showed flecks of blood. So my colonoscopy found a small blemish that turned out to be malignant. And in August 2006, 16 centimeters of my colon were removed. Again, no chemo was necessary, proving once again, that early detection and the stool samples are effective. Now, I know that a colonoscopy can be a pain in the ass, but it's a preventative procedure and early detection of colon cancer, and it's also important to do those stool samples if your doctor has them, because that's what led to my early diagnosis. Last year, my sister and my young brother died of cancer. In my family, there were 7 brothers and sisters. 4 have died of cancer, including my mother, and a number of uncles and aunts. So as a 2-time survivor, I participated in the Relay for Life for 2 reasons. And one of them is I want to raise awareness that the preventative measures can lead to early detection and a life after cancer. And I also want to help raise funds to find a cure for this devastating disease in memory of the members of my family. And the Relay for Life really helps. So your support and promoting it and telling all your constituents, get out there and raise some money and do a walk would really be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
And I'm just going to leave some luminary bags with information about the relay in them. With Lynn? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you. So if you just wait a second, I'm just going to ask Council, they might have some questions. Council, can I get a motion to receive the presentation? Moved by Councilor Humphreys, seconded by Councilor Thompson. Councilor Humphreys, question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for coming this evening. We actually participated quite a few times in the Relay for Life. It's amazing. When it was the 24-hour, 12-hour maybe, it was at the Magna Fields, and first few years it was a lot of fun. But it's hard to stay up all night, and younger kids can do it. But but it's an amazing event to raise awareness. It's a wonderful event to attend. I'd love to participate. If June 21st is okay for me, and we'll try our best, but absolutely we'll advertise and promote and fundraise as much as possible. And congratulations to our cancer survivor there. Thank you very much. I think it's incredible that you're here representing survivors. I got news today. One of my closest best friends is 5 years clear lung cancer just today on the way here. So I walked for her in the Relay for Race 5 years ago, and so again, it's huge. It touches all of us. So the most we can do to help the best. So thank you very much for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Humphreys. Councilor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for coming and speaking today. I have a daughter, 2 daughters actually, that really participate in Relay for Life through Aurora High School. It's been a really huge event there for, I think they do it maybe every other year. which is absolutely a fantastic event. And she's been so excited to raise money continuously. We've been touched by battling cancer in our families as well, and I completely understand. And I would love to have some more information about this social media releases so I can help support and spread the word and help raise some money. So thank you so much for coming and speaking tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gillen. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Tabulator.
Thank you.
Ms. Yates, did you want to come into the middle and we'll
We
take a
would
photo with
love-
council?
Yes,
Yes,
if you
so
would,
council,
that would
can
be
we all
great. Thank you.
hop into the middle there? Okay, council, we have no delegations. Consent agenda, 3 items. Anybody have any questions on any one of those items? Anyone wants to pull any one of them? Seeing none, so if I can get a motion to approve C1, 2, and 3. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Kim, using your tabulators. That carries. So we have standing committee reports. Any items? Councillor Thompson.
I'd like to pull R1.
R1. Thank you. Anybody else? No, we're hitting the button. You gotta hit the button. Councillor Gardner.
May I have R7 and R8? Thanks.
R7 and R8. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, if I can get a motion to approve all items except R1, R7, and R8. Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Kim. Call the vote. That carries. All right. R1, Councillor Thompson.
I'll put the staff recommendation on the floor for the moment. Or our recommendation.
Seconder, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Thompson.
Just following up on our conversation last week with regards to while the report did say to wait for the provincial review of regional governance, certainly I believe that we need to conduct our business going forward, and that if the province were to weigh in and make any substantial changes, it'd have an impact across the organization. So I didn't necessarily agree with the perspective to wait. I thought we should move forward at this time. I do have an amendment that I'd also like to put on the floor if you would allow it at this time.
Sure, go ahead.
Just give me a sec to pull it up. The amendment actually comes from, for those that were on council last term, they'll remember that our solicitor at the time, Warren Marr, prepared a report with regards to the questions on the ballot. And at that time, he had indicated...
Councilor, can we get the amendment, then you can...
Sure. General town-wide vote.
Someone want to second that? Councilor Kim? Councilor Thompson?
Thank you.
Speaking to the amendment.
As I was saying, so this motion comes out of a report prepared by our former solicitor, Warren Marr. He had indicated that it was should council want to proceed with moving towards examining wards, that it would be good to put forward a motion such as this to give a clear indication to the consultant and for next steps that was the general direction of the council at the time. I believe that now as well, that while the original motion is to bring on a consultant to sort of explore the boundaries and what it would mean to go to a ward system, I think it's important twofold. I think this council needs to send a clear and concise message that we are more than just interested in exploring the possibility of changing our electoral system, that the general view is that we believe it is time to switch from a town-wide perspective to the ward vote. And while this doesn't bind us because it is just in principle, I think it shows that to the committee, the governance committee that is, and to the consultant, that it is the serious intention of this council to switch our system of government. I will say also that there's been many talk about whether it would be a straight ward system or a hybrid system or no system at all and just maintain the status quo. While this motion in front of us doesn't necessarily speak to a hybrid system, it doesn't bind us to anything. And certainly if as the consultant goes through the process, they think that it's best to have a mix whereby, for example, not only the mayor, but let's say the deputy mayor would be by a town-wide vote, then that's fine. That would still be the option of council to choose that when and if that consultant report came before council. But I just think that I think it's important that for those that are vehemently opposed to a ward system, that it's an opportunity for them to speak now and show their thoughts or preference towards the system. Otherwise, we should continue forward.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Any other comments, questions on the amendment? Councilor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not in favor of the amendment as it reads. I think that it's fine that we are very clear to the public that we would like to explore a ward system, but I think that it says that we're hiring consultant, and one of the reasons that we're hiring the consultant, and there are many, is so that they can do public outreach as well to get public input into this. I think if we say, even in principle, that council wants the ward system, it's biasing the public outreach. And I think that as council, we're here to represent what the public wants, and the public may very well want a ward system, but I don't think that if we're going to all of this trouble for the review, that we as council should be telling the public upfront what we want. We can tell them it's one of the main things we want to explore, but I feel this is the wrong way to go about it.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Councilor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be in favor of the amendment. I think, the Governance Review Committee, they've spent most of last term and now beginning of this term, working hard and trying to find an amicable, path towards, whether a ward system is viable. And, we want to support them in saying that, we're taking, their work seriously. Because if we're not serious in taking their work seriously, then why should they continue on? So I think for us, it's an endorsement of what they're doing. And I think in some many times over the last 4.5 years, I've heard many councillors around the table say that ward system would be beneficial, and we've outlined many of the reasons why. And and secondary, we need to hold ourselves accountable to the public as well. Over the last 4.5 years, I've experienced people, councillors, say one thing in previous years and say something else in subsequent years. And we need to hold ourselves accountable in where we're at and where we're positioned. And this is a way of, solidifying that, we are committed, given the recommendations that will be coming out of the Governance Review Committee, that, we're committed to it. So I would be endorsing the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. I support the amendment as well. I believe that we've spoke about this over the last several terms myself, and I think we're in a good position to provide this type of direction to the consultants, understanding that they'll be gathering more information and perhaps some more public input. But I believe this is the right way to go. Watching how things have worked over the last 9 years, I believe if we were directly accountable to an area, that there's a strong accountability there. Whereas now we're at large, which is flexible for the resident, absolutely. They can pick the counselor or many counselors to work on their behalf, but sometimes that isn't the greatest thing, because I've seen emails go unanswered, myself included, because I think someone else is looking after it. So I almost feel like we're doing it now. Otherwise, we're sending 7 responses, separate responses. I just find it's not as effective as it can be, because our town has grown a bit larger, and having that dedicated resource for that area and understanding the intimate concerns of that particular area, because parts of our town are very different, I think allows a lot of benefit for the resident. So I'm very excited about this, and I hope that we can move forward and see where this leads us. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Thompson, before I go to you for a second time, I'll be in favor of the amendment. And I understand that there might be concern that this might, add a level of bias. But I look at it as similar as to when we looked at hiring a consultant for the stable neighborhoods. There was concern about that too, but we gave clear direction to that.
We did.
To that issue, and said that we want a consultant to come in and give us changes, not say keep it the same. And so what we're doing here is we're presenting that clear direction from council, saying that we would like to move in this direction, and we want the consultant to put forward options that would present this direction. So I'll be in favor of the amendment. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. And, it's a valid concern that by putting this forward, we are kind of, biasing public engagement. However, I'd say that, we put the question on the ballot. We have the residents' response. It was 55 to 45% no at the time of that vote 4 years ago. So, we already have that sense. But by doing this, I would rather see the conversation move a little bit less from, should we or shouldn't we, to, okay, if we move towards, what should the boundaries look like? Have the input from the residents about how to shape those boundaries. That's a significant process. Usually when municipalities go through this, they've already established themselves as wards and they're redrawing the boundaries. We're going to do this for the first time, and we have to figure out a way to make sure that, each ward is in some way, fairly represented and, has a similar mix to the other areas throughout town. And it's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of engagement. And so I'd rather see the focus of the conversation be, how do we do this? How do we move from our current system to the ward system? Then continue the debate of should we or shouldn't we? Because we had that. The question on the ballot is the best way to do that decision-making process. And so we have those results, and yet I still think, and I firmly believe that this council has made that decision, that even though we know that, you know, it was a close vote and it was a little bit more on the no side, we still believe that this is the best way forward for Aurora, especially for a town of our size, and that let's engage the public, but more so on how do we make this transition and what do these wards look like.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And during this process, is there also going to be an opportunity for members of the public who do not think that a ward system is appropriate to express their, and to know that they can do that legitimately in this context of what we're looking at?
Of course. I would say that there's going to be a public consultation phase, and any member of the public would come out and speak for or against, just as any issue that we put forward and discuss at council.
Thank you. And I'd also like to ask, with a population of 65,000, we're going to be potentially dividing Aurora into some pretty small wards. Is that the intent, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I think the intent is to have the consultant come back to us with what those boundaries would look like and what the population split up would be. I can't speak to what size they would be, whether it'd be equal 10,000 residents in each ward. I don't know at this point. That would be for a consultant to present to us.
Thank you. And I'd like to know from the consultant, with the other municipalities that have divided into wards, how many people they have in each of their wards.
That's a great question, and I'm sure the consultant would be able to provide us with an answer looking at the other municipalities.
Thank you.
Okay, council, any other questions, comments to the amendment? Seeing none, call the vote. That carries. Back to the main motion as amended. Councillor Thompson, you still have the floor? You're okay? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I asked a question last week about, on page 3, about the Carter decision and why it's in the report. As Councillor Thompson said, you know, you can have a community establishing itself into wards and redrawing the boundaries, or you can have a whole provincial or federal area that's redrawing boundaries, but we're not doing that in this case. So I think Mr. Clerk might be prepared to answer.
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The Carter decision is a Supreme Court of Canada decision, so it applies to all municipal or all jurisdictions in Canada. So regardless of whether it's a federal splitting up into districts or ridings, or the provincial government or municipal government, the principle of effective representation is what's important, and achieving effective representation through representation by population, communities of interest or neighborhoods in our case, physical barriers as natural dividers. So it still applies to municipal government.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. The way I read it, it's talking about provincial electoral boundaries and establishing a larger boundary. It has nothing to do with ward systems. So I'll just say that I find it a little strange.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. That carries. Next item, R7. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going back to it because I had some questions.
Are you moving it as is, or?
Yes, I am.
Move as is. Second. Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gardner.
Just as some clarification, and I think that Mr. Director Waters was left with the question. We've had a lot of trouble over the years when we've asked people when they're, demolishing sites to save particular things that the town may find important. So with respect to number 7, I believe it's a stained glass window. and all woodwork from the main interior staircase. So it says that at the owner at their expense, they have to salvage it and store it. But you can store something in a barn or you can store something properly. So I just want to know what the parameters are for that storage.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's best practices in other municipalities that the onus on salvaging is the owner of the property, and they would have to remove the feature and then properly store it. Staff would be present while the feature is being removed from the house.
Councilor Gardner?
Thank you. As a follow-up, does town staff have any, or heritage staff in particular, have any jurisdiction over where it's stored and if it's properly stored so that it won't be at the mercy of the weather?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would provide the appropriate guidance and recommendations regarding storage, but ultimately it's up to the owner of the property to store it properly.
Councilor Gardner?
Thank you. And we have had some problems in the past with owners of properties, as Councillor Humphrey well knows, and unfortunately I know as well. It's fine for us to say something like that, but if we have no call over where it's stored. In the past, it was stored with the town of Aurora. Is that not possible because we don't have the space?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That is absolutely correct. I believe there's it's a trailer that currently has some windows and doors in it. It's at capacity. There's no more room at the JOC for the town to store these features.
Councilor Gardner?
Thank you. That's too bad. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. That carries. R8. Councilor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the same kind of question. I move as is.
Thank you. Councilor Humphreys? Go ahead, Councilor Gardner.
Thank you. And this one is of particular interest because the owner of the property, shall we say, didn't follow the rules already. So, Mr. Waters, with respect to it's page, it's R8, it's 2E, condition of demolition, again, salvage of the field stones from the foundation. It seemed to me that we might have an easier time finding a place for field stones.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure how many field stones are being salvaged. We could have that conversation with Mr. Downey and see if there is any additional room, but at this point in time, I'm not sure we can accommodate those items.
Councilor Gardner?
Thank you. Perhaps you... I'm not going to ask Mr. Downey because I know the answer. Okay, Mr. Downey, go for it.
Yeah. Mr. Downey? You can accommodate that?
Well, they're field stones, but perhaps, thank you, Mr. Waters, through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Waters, perhaps this could be a conversation with our heritage planner. And because I'm not completely trusting that the owner is going to take care of these appropriately, and if the Heritage Committee thought they were worth saving, then...
Councilor Gardner?
That's fine.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Councilor Humphreys?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This actually came up, the field stones actually came up in conversation at the last Heritage meeting, and I believe Adam was going to look at, there's a need at the Hillary House for these field stones, and if they can get someone to transport them there and find a place for them to store them, they would accept them very happily. So they're planning on this when they build their barn again. So if that's a possibility, that can help. To Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Downey?
not to get into the debate, but if Hillary House is interested in, perhaps the best place to store them is the Machel Yard. It's right next door.
Through Mr. Mayor, that sounds amazing. I think that they would be really happy to receive them, and if that's a possibility and Machel Gardens are there, that's fantastic. It's an answer to a really great thing, item that we'd like to salvage. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Humphries. Any other comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Councillor Garner? Thank you. And that carries. That's it for items. Motions. It's first mine. Yep. So I'm going to pass the chair to our Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I have a mover and a seconder for the, well...
I'll move as is.
Mayor will move as is, and a seconder, Councillor Thompson. Any questions or comments on the motion, please?
Actually, well,
Councillor? Or let's
I can't
have
hit my button, that's why.
Mayor Marakis have the opening statement.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. I'm not going to bore everyone with the history, because I did that last week under new business. But at the end of the day, when Bill 139 was introduced in the House, that would look at making significant changes and abolish the OMB. It was quite an incredible amount of work, from not just from elected officials, but from residents, ratepayers, getting together and speaking on behalf of needed changes to bring authority back to our local governments on how we evolve and grow as municipalities in respect to land use planning. Those changes in Bill 139 were actually, Bill 139 was actually passed unanimously by the House at that time. So, when I look at what's happening now with the new bill being introduced that would bring back a flawed system that they all agreed that was a flawed system and that needed to be changed. My question to those MPPs that are sitting in the House now, why the change? What we call in political terms, why the flip-flop? I think it's time that this government talks about the fact that they're for the people. Well, let's put the people first instead of the party. And that's what I see here. Everyone's towing the party line, and they're looking to make changes to legislation. Who's asking for it? When Bill 139 was introduced, it was elected officials across this province, and it was a majority of them that represented close to 70% of the population in this province. And that's why those changes were made. Who's asking for these changes now? I don't see the people up in arms saying that we need to go back to a system that's flawed. At the end of the day, this is being driven by a for-profit industry that is looking to increase their profit margins. The talk is that this is to create more affordable housing. Well, there's 15 acts that are looking at being changed within this bill. So, you have the Conservation Authorities Act, Endangered Species Act, Environmental Protection Act, Labor Relations Act, the Ontario Water Resources Act, and the Ontario Heritage Act, and that's just to name a few of them. And they were put in place to safeguard our environment, our history, our health. And now they are being basically jeopardized in the guise of affordable housing. So, I put forward this motion to say that we in Aurora oppose this bill in its current state, and that we would like the government of Ontario to halt this bill, stop, pause, whatever it is, and sit down with the elected officials, and let's have a conversation how we can achieve what we truly need and what we all agree we need, which is affordable housing. There is a housing crisis in Ontario, but it's not one of supply, it's one of affordable housing. You know, at the end of the day, the talk is that that missing middle, that this is what will be able to be built if we, you know, provide and supply more supply of housing. Well, that missing middle can be built today. There's no red tape. You can go out and you can build bungalows, you can build mid-rise, low-rise to mid-rise apartments, but that's not happening. That's not getting built. If bungalows were getting built, we wouldn't have an issue. Those would be getting passed, no problem. So there is no red tape. The red tape is the development industry coming to this council and coming to councils across this province and asking for amendment after amendment and asking us to rip apart our official plans and our visions for our communities so that they can increase their profits. It's not what the people want. And as I said last week, it's time to sit down, work together, and let's have planning that's for the people and not planning for profit.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mayor, thank you for bringing this motion forward. I wasn't part of the OMB reform group that you led with Councillor Thompson, but I know all the work behind it, the effort, and how proud we were that we were, you know, the leading municipality to really be the forefront of protecting where we live and have a say on how we want our municipalities to be developed and how we, you know, want to enjoy our town. So I'm very worried about this bill. I'm actually really concerned about it. And I really hope that once we move forward this evening, hopefully we can pass this forward quickly and that a copy of this gets sent to all of the municipalities, that the message gets sent loud and clear to our government to stop this, put a pause on this. And I like your questions, who's asking for this anyway? It was just changed. So I just wanted to say I support it very much. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also thank you for the hard work, and Councillor Thompson for the hard work that has been done in the past. And it was sensible work that most elected representatives agreed on. So I definitely support you. The opening up of lands for development, for profit, in order to do that, the Environmental Assessment Act, the Environmental Protection Act, the Endangered Species Act, all of those will take a hit. And also the Heritage Act, I believe there's also a Heritage Act that's going to be affected. So when we write our letter, when you write our letter, are you going to be also objecting to the changes that are envisioned for all of these acts in the bill?
Councillor, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Through you, Councillor Gardner, as it states in the first clause, you know, that we oppose Bill 108. So to me, that states that we oppose the bill fully. So I oppose the whole bill. Some might not, and I can't speak to those that might, you know, like some parts of it, but I oppose the whole bill.
Well, and thank you. Sorry for interrupting. You're sending this message on behalf of our council. So it would be up to our council as well to decide what you're talking about in your motion, which is very good, thank you, is the consequences. Hold on, maybe I could find the exact wording. Well, you're talking about the consequences with respect to land development and what a municipality feels is proper land development. So in that, some of these things in the bill will apply and some won't. And in the context, I think, of your motion, you're really talking about land use
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, if you read through the bill and you read through the acts that they are looking at changing, a lot of the things that they're looking at changing do deal with planning issues. The Endangered Species Act, they're talking about basically, and in layman's terms, I would say, as a developer, you'll be able to just cut a check to bypass some protections. That's in simple terms. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but so I would say each of the acts that are being affected to allow for easier access for the development community to come in and develop what they would like to, instead of what municipalities would like to see.
Thank you. And I didn't really say what I said before clearly with respect to the first now therefore. Bill 108, which in its current state will have negative consequences on community building and proper planning. So we're really not addressing everything in Bill 108. So is it your intention to address everything in Bill 108, or the things that have to do with community building and proper planning?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And as I stated, I do believe it does refer to everything, because I believe that every act that they're changing specifics within those acts in regards to community building and proper planning.
How would the Education Act fit into that?
Have you read the bill?
No, I haven't. So would you kindly tell me?
I would suggest that we sit down together. It's a very long and extensive bill. If you'd like, we can sit down together and we can go through it, and I can point out the exact specifics of each act.
No, but in the Education Act, is it going to affect our community building and proper planning?
Yes, because it would allow for possibly sales of lands. So you have to look at it from that planning perspective.
Okay. I would, and maybe you can find a place to put this. I would like, if you would, to say that we oppose Bill 108 in its entirety, including, because to me the motion reads, it wouldn't be clearly that we were concerned about other things that are not directly involved with community building and proper planning. I would just like you to make it as strong as you can, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
From my interpretation, it seems that the verbiage seems to indicate that it's about entirety of Bill 108. I'll leave it to Mayor Marakis whether he's willing to make an amendment. Mayor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just state, and I was going to bring this up on my second time speaking, but since you asked, I feel that the bill is, or this motion is well written. Obviously, I wrote it, so I think it's well written. I think it speaks to how strongly we are opposed to this. And quite frankly, and I can let everyone know that it's already been sent right across the province to every municipality and every elected official. And as of today, Niagara-on-the-Lake has already passed this exact motion, and so has Markham this morning has passed this unanimously. So I feel that if we're going to do it, as I always state, let's do it together. Let's all be saying the exact same thing, so we're on the same page, so that way we're heard loud and clear from the province, and that's what this is doing, I think.
Gardner?
Mr. Mayor, and I do agree this whole motion is well written. I would just like to make it as clear as possible to the province that it's not only Bill 08, which will have negative consequences on our deciding what our community wants, but there's also a wider interpretation.
Thomas?
Thank you. For those that were here last term, Mayor Marakis, then Councillor Marakis, brought forward a motion that dealt with the OMB, and one of the sections within it said, be it further resolved that the Government of Ontario be requested to require the OMB to uphold, any planning decisions of municipal councils unless they are contrary to the process and rules set out in legislation. And to me, that was always one of the key and primary factors for which municipalities had been advocating for years. They saw themselves, us included, as the decision makers in our communities. Who better than us to plan how our community should unfold and look like? And that's what not just Aurora, but many, many municipalities fought for both last term and many years before that. That's always been one of the principles behind it. And when the OMB was reformed and LPAT came around, you know, through my conversations with my councillor colleagues in other communities and so forth, everybody applauded the changes because it finally gave the councillors and municipalities and mayors that which they had asked for and advocated for so many years. The ability to make those decisions and have the community unfold the way that it needed to unfold. And so, you know, obviously I'm in support of the motion before us, but this bill now is a giant step back. It takes that power back away from those who live in the community and puts it back in the hands of the OMB. And, you know, the same problems that existed before come about. You know, I was part of a municipal summit last term whereby we had people from the development industry. We had former members of the OMB in attendance, and obviously we had many different councillors, and everybody said the prior process was flawed. Whether you were in the development community, whether you were a former member of the OMB and one of the people adjudicating on these particular cases, everybody felt there was some flaw and it needed to be changed. And so now we've reversed and taken that step back. And so, you know, with regards to the current Bill 108, it touches on so many acts, but the principle is still the same. All of those acts, you know, we had some say in how those things would unfold, whether it be the heritage aspect, whether it be environmental aspects, whether it be housing and planning aspects. Our ability to have some control and say in that has now been minimized through this potential bill. And so I think it does speak to the entirety of it by just saying we need to halt this legislation. We need to have further dialogue. We need our provincial advocacy agency, AMO, to take a stronger stance. I was disappointed to see their alert come out that really, you know, took a conservative view, a sort of middle of the road view, and said, you know, we're troubled by some parts and we like some parts, but, you know, they should be taking a stronger stance because they should be the voice of municipalities. And so I'm certainly supportive of the motion in front of us. I think, you know, Mayor Marakis will do what he's done in the past. He will serve as a lightning rod to get other municipalities to also speak up and show support for this, and hopefully the province listens. Thank you.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor Marakis, for keeping them on their toes and acting as quickly as you have and reaching out to other municipalities. And I echo what Councillor Thompson said, we need to band together and stand strong. And I really do hope that other municipalities, like you said, Markham and a few other places you had said are on board. I think if we act quickly and we stand strong, you have some really strong verbiage in there. I like the way it looks. I like the way it says. We cannot let developers tell us how we want our community to look. We need to stand strong and represent the people in our community and build the community that we want for the people. So I'm totally in favor of this, and I thank you very much.
You know, I know, having been part of last term, you know, I recall Mayor Marakis and Councillor Thompson working very hard, being very creative, and that's, you know, when they were working towards the OMB reform, it really struck home to me how passionate they are about our municipality and municipalities in general. And I know they worked very hard, and I know how many times Mayor Marakis had to copy and paste all those emails and to the wee hours of the morning, and all those efforts. You know, it's really disappointing that it may go all for naught, being reversed. You know, I recall it was last AMO meeting where there was a workshop about the OMB, and I recall listening to former Kingston mayor. She sat on the OMB, and she said it was improper for her and other OMB members who don't live in a certain region, but they would have to make decisions on behalf of a certain region where they don't know the nuances and the situation of that region. And so there was a lot of flaws that were surfaced, some good, but many flaws, and hence we had to reform. So it's sad to see this effort for all this to be repealed. It seems clear to me that it's all about centralizing the decision-making process. We all know that municipal government is the most accessible to all residents, and it seems to make the most sense that local planning stays in local hands. When I look down at Bill 108 and see all the reversals, the community benefit charge replaces the parkland dedication, shorter timelines for appeals of municipalities, failure to make a decision, restriction on third-party appeals for plans of subdivision, and only the minister can appeal the interim control bylaw when initiated for the first time. And builders can override environmental items so long as they pay a fee towards environmental research. I mean, in the economic and environmental world, they say, one stat doesn't make a trend, but certainly when you read all these points, it certainly does point towards a trend which is not favorable to the environment or local decision-making, and it's very disappointing. So I'm very supportive of Mayor Marakis' motion, and thankful for this motion. And if we don't have any other comments or questions, let's close it with Mayor Marakis with final comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the support. And I just wanted to touch a little bit about the heritage aspect of it, because it is very troublesome, actually. To move from the Conservation Review Board that now looks at appeals and move it to LPAT, which would, in essence, be the new OMB. Those decisions would be binding. So now not only would you have an unelected, unaccountable body deciding on planning matters and overturning local councils' decisions on how we want to grow, and they would also be looking at heritage aspects. So you would have someone that's never stepped foot in our community decide what is historic to our community and to our people. And to me, I think that that's just wrong. And I'll close up with, as I mentioned, it passed unanimously in the previous House. And I have a quote from the Honorable Ernie Hardman, Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs now. And when he was sitting there and discussing Bill 139, he said, I'm just pulling this up, everyone, because I just want to make sure I get it correct, the quote. He says, "We need to ensure that we have a system that works and that respects municipal decision making." So I ask the Honorable Minister, what has changed?
Thank you, Mayor Marakis. There are no further comments. If you can go to your tabulators and put it to a vote, please. The motion passes unanimously. And with that, I'll pass the chair back to the mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kim. Next motion, Councillor Gilliland, Community Advisory Committee appointment.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know how I can top that motion, but I'll certainly try. Just a little backstory again.
If I can get you to move it,
sorry, yeah. Sorry.
Move as is?
Yep.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Gartner, go ahead.
Thank you. So a little backstory. The Community Advisory Committee is comprised of 3 other committees that were amalgamated together, and we had a bunch of residents who were elected to be a part of this committee. As such, we've had elected this committee based on certain areas of interest particular to this committee, and we have so learned that a particular member needed to withdraw their their elected seat to this committee that was in a specific area of interest, specifically in the sporting community. And because of that, I feel that we should re-elect or appoint another member who had applied in this, and I would like to rather appoint somebody sooner rather than later, before the next meeting that happens in June, so we can make sure that we go forward with this in a seamless manner. I really feel that we need to have someone fill this position who has a specific area of interest, and I feel that within that list of applications, there are some candidates there that could fill that void, and I really certainly hope that I could have your support in moving this along, so come June 20th, we'll have a full committee.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Oh, at the last second. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Gilliland, for bringing this motion forward. I agree. We certainly do need a replacement for the lost member, and certainly given that we combined Trails, Parks and Rec, and Trails. Did I say Trails again?
You said Trails twice.
Okay. What's the third? Environment together. It's certainly a very big committee. It's probably the biggest advisory committee of all of the committees that we have. And it's certainly important to have all areas represented. And if the motion is for, certainly we did have one community advisory committee meeting, and we did lack the Parks and Rec, sports representation, and my only question that I have would be that I'm not sure from the applications that we had when we first made the decision whether there were, I'm not sure how many off the top of my head had a sports background, and so I'm just wondering whether it might be best to use the town communication or social media or some means to get the word out there to other sports organizations, because I know there are many sports organizations and many of them have members who can provide a lot of fantastic input. And my only concern is that I'm not sure with the pool that we have whether there's sufficient names in there for that sports area. But in general, I'm in favor of the motion. I'm just wondering whether it should be going out or not. And I'd like to hear what the others have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Thompson.
I'm always a little concerned about waiving policy. I like us to be consistent unless there's a specific reason to do so. To the best of my knowledge, while I understand that, you want to have a full complement at the committee meeting, I don't believe, given my prior experience and knowledge on those kind of committees, that there are any pressing matters that couldn't necessarily be dealt in the normal course of time. I also don't think that the advertising cost would be that exorbitant. We have a notice board that is always in the paper, and certainly you could put a notice in there if you wanted to reach out to and go through the process again. Or in this case, we're being very specific. The general committee was to be a broad-based committee that touched on all subjects, but now we're saying, no, we want something that's very focused, very specific. And so I'm a little concerned that if we don't open it back up and we just go back to the general list of people, that other groups that are sporting associated might say, well, why wasn't I notified that you were looking specific for somebody that's part of a sporting organization or sporting background? And so, I'd rather err on the side of caution and either reach out to them and say, hey, is there anybody within your group that may be interested in being part of this committee, because we are looking for somebody specifically with organized sport background or a broad sporting history, or do it through just communications and the notice board and put that notice out and say, hey, here's the gap in this committee we're looking to fill. If you have a broad-based background in this, come forward, and then we make the decision based on those groups. My concern is, again, like I said, if the motion passes as is and we just pick somebody that's specific to that area, there may be some concern from other groups saying, geez, I didn't know that's what you were looking for. Maybe we could have put somebody forward. Or maybe that group that was associated with the person that stepped down. Maybe they have an alternative candidate. I don't know. But, I just think that I'd rather follow our policy, and if we want to amend it a bit to look for somebody with a specific skill set, I'm fine with that. Otherwise, I'd say, if we're going to waive the policy, then you just go back and you look at the candidates and you pick whoever the best candidate is, regardless of that skill set you're looking for.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I understand where Councillor Gilliland is coming from. I understand where Councillor Thompson is coming from. We do have to be very careful about process, and I don't know. Mr. Clerk would know better. Usually in the past, if somebody steps down from a committee, we go out and advertise again.
Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Councillor Gardner.
So I don't know because there's a specific, because this is new. We've never had a committee like this, and so I don't know, but we should think this through carefully as a council, because we don't want to, we do have a process. So I think it seems more in the process that if somebody steps down from a committee, we look at those who've already applied, certainly as opposed to going out and asking different groups if they have a member. Mr. Mayor, you probably have a clearer head than I do this evening. Or Councillor John. Certainly my head is not clear this evening. But really, we need to be careful because we have an established process. So if we're going to go outside of it, let's be very careful what we pick, because we do have a need. And we have a timeline.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Humphreys.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I'm okay with the motion. Just want to clarify a couple of things. So really what we want to do is let's just go back to the pool that had applied earlier, right? Do you, Mr. Mayor?
That's what I'm reading on the screen, yes.
Okay, and I mean, there's mention of a skill set, but there's a whole pool in that, and we don't know how many, I can't remember now. So is the proper process that we go back to that pool? Is that normally the process? I'm sorry, I just want to clarify that again. Or is it advertising? I can't remember.
Mr. Clerk, advertising, is that correct?
Is that right? So we usually normally, but it was such a brand new, it's just the first meeting. It almost seems a shame because everyone's just put their, it's a little different, right? It's not like a year later. Yeah, we just had one. So really, to go through the whole advertising thing, but I don't mind doing a little bit of both, like have the existing pool, ask if others are interested, maybe give it a 2-week period, and then we go in. What is that? Is that okay, or I don't know. I don't want to have to do the whole thing because we just started, this committee. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Kim, second time.
Yes. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gilliland. So it seems like to me there's, I'm fine with the motion as is. If we're going to be looking at a member with a wide variety of skill sets that's going to serve on the committee, and those are the parameters in which we're going to be voting in closed session, then this motion is fine.
Let me just correct it. We don't vote in closed session.
Or
Councillor. Just sorry, I just wanted to let you know that.
Or if we're looking for, because it does combine 3 advisory committees, and you feel that we're lacking in the sports area, and if that's your intent, which you mentioned, then we need to make a decision as to whether we want to go out and advertise for more, and and if it's about sports, my opinion is we need to put this out to all the sports committees instead of the pool that we have, because we may, I don't recall everyone in the pool, but it seems to make sense to advertise it to all the sports organization. But if it's just about a general experience and someone who will serve well in the general committee, then we leave it as is. And so I'll leave it to Councillor Gilliland as to what her approach might be.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gilliland?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question to the clerk as far as like the timeline with, if you were to advertise, how long are we waiting for that process before we have somebody else appointed? So we're not feeling like we're having a missing link on our committee.
Mr. Clark?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is one thing that staff did consider when we received the resignation from the committee, was that it would be difficult to appoint them before the second meeting, so we were waiting just in case another appointment or another vacancy on a committee came up, so we could gain some efficiency there. We were planning on it would probably run concurrent with the second meeting of the Community Advisory Committee, and we'd certainly have them appointed for the third meeting in September, but we'd probably look to appoint them end of June or at the July meeting. If we were to advertise.
Councillor Gilliland?
So end of July, you're suggesting we could advertise and have a new person elected for that meeting?
Apologies, I wasn't clear there. We want to do that. We try not to advertise for committees over the summer. It's not fair to the residents. So we'd want to advertise middle of June, towards the end of June at the latest.
Right.
Councillor Gilliland?
So with that, I mean, my concern is that we do have a missing link within our committee, and just from my memory and knowledge, there is quite a pool of people who I feel within that initial application would fill that position. There was sufficient amount of people who had applied with many skill sets who I feel would fill that void. So I'm trying to look towards, we're heading into a summer season. It's a season of activity that's much different, and I really feel we need a little bit of leadership in that direction, and I do feel that we have people who have applied, and I would not want to wait until the fall or even October before that position is filled. And I just kind of feel like I would rather have somebody appointed sooner than later if we could take advantage of that.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Thompson, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate it all. I think the other thing I keep thinking back is committees don't meet in the summer. So really we are only talking about the one meeting, having someone in place for June or not, whichever process you go. If you choose to, stick to the policy and go back out and reach out to the community and see if there's interest, they would be in place for September. And so I certainly think the committee with the 8 citizen members could certainly function in June without filling that place. But, as Councillor Garden and I were just discussing on the side, our policy doesn't really call for this. Maybe we can amend our policy to do it, but where is that cutoff area? Is it the first meeting? Is it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? Where does it fit in where you say, okay, after this point in time, that's where we're going to go back to the community or not? And so, as I said initially, my preference is to just follow our policy, try and minimize some of the costs by using the notice board. If it is sports themed that we're looking at, then, we certainly know the organizations to target. I'm fine with including those that have all previously applied when we sit down in June or whatever, but I just think we should give others an opportunity to put their name forward if they are so inclined, and then we can make a decision from there. And that would adhere to our policy and, to some degree, protect us from anybody coming back and saying, hey, why didn't you let me know?
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gartner, second time.
Although I agree with Councillor Thompson, I think it would be appropriate for all of our committees. I mean, we've gone to the expense, we've done the process. If we do lose a member, and I would say it would be within the first 2 meetings, and make it very, very new, because all of the candidates are very recent. So I would be willing to make an amendment, but it would have to be for all of the committees, that if we lose a member within the first 2 meetings, that we can go back to our advertised receipts. We'd have to change the policy.
Yeah, that would be a new notice of motion, Councillor.
If council's changing its own policy, I don't think we need a notice of motion, do we, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Clerk? We would? We would.
We would, so...
That would be a separate one because that would
yeah.
be speaking to our policy in general.
So, I'm sorry, Councilor Gillen, my idea doesn't help you out at all. So I have to revert to process and say that we need to go out and advertise again.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Humphreys.
Through Mr. Mayor, and I was just speaking to Councillor Gilliland here, and what I think would be all right, because we don't have any meetings in the summer. There'll be one missing meeting. Councillor Gilliland didn't realize we don't have many summer meetings just because of the way people are away. That she'd be all right to do that, but from my perspective, I'd like to, I think Councillor Thompson mentioned this, that if we do go out, that we keep the pool that applied just so recently, so that the applicants would be new applicants, but we still have the original pool, because they just applied, really. And so I hope that's okay. Is that part of this policy? Okay, as long as it's part of the policy, we go out, do the regular thing, and then we have new candidates, we could still look at the original group of individuals. Is that fair? I just
So
want to make sure they don't lose.
are you suggesting an amendment?
It's okay. Just a slight amendment to say that we move forward with the regular policy processes, that we do go out and advertise the seat, that we also maintain the current group that did apply initially. It's only been, if that's fair, and then any new individuals can please come forward, and we have a new candidate for the September meeting in the group. Is that fair? No?
You don't think we need an amendment, Mr. Clark?
We don't have to? Okay.
Mr. Clark? Yes, go ahead, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the motion is defeated, I've heard from council this evening, and we would we'd advertise our normal process and then bring back what we get through that, plus any ones from the advertising in January that we did.
And instead of defeating, could the mover withdraw the motion? Could that also work?
That can happen at any time.
So, Councillor, would you want to put this to a vote and have it defeated from what I'm understanding, or would you rather withdraw the motion?
I'm comfortable withdrawing, just based on the fact that I wasn't clear that there is no July and August meetings, so I'm not losing those months with my...
Okay, so you'll withdraw the motion? You'd like to... Is the seconder okay with that?
Yes, but I have a question for clarification.
I will allow the question. Go ahead.
Thank you. The question is, wouldn't we have to get in touch with the people who've applied and make sure they still want to be on the list?
I'm assuming the clerk will look after that. Yes.
Thank you. And they'll know they don't have to reapply when they see the ad. Yes?
Mr. Clerk?
That will be difficult. That would involve, we had about 40 applicants, so it involved contacting a lot of people. But
most of them are on committees, aren't they?
we can set it up for council that maybe there's an alternate selected too, so that if the first person is no longer interested, then the second person is.
That's a good idea.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for your question. It's a good question. All right, so the motion's withdrawn. Regional report. Someone like to move this? Councillor Kim, Councillor Thompson, comments or questions on the regional report? Councillor Gardner.
Mr. Mayor, I have to confess, I haven't read it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything on there that pertains specifically to Aurora that we need to know about?
Nothing that I've highlighted that this council needs to know, but if you'd like, you can, I think we have our one-on-one coming up. We can sit down and go through some of the things that have come through in the last
Okay.
month that might have some slight specifics to Aurora.
Thank you. I'll also read it for next meeting. I could ask under new business.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. That carries. New business. Start to my left. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gartner. Yes?
Yes, thank you. I just have a follow-up for Mr. Downey for the question last week, which was the garbage that's on the former Highland property behind Sunrise, in that general area of Sunrise and I think Hunters. And it was not only in the water, it was on the land too. Do you have a follow-up with that?
Mr. Downey?
Certainly, yes. Through Mr. Mayor, we contacted the owner the very next day. It was Geranium Homes. And so they dispatched a crew immediately. They were very responsive, and it's been cleaned up.
Thank you very
Councillor
much. And I don't think Mr. Downey has been thanked at the table for the signs, the wildlife signs, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Councillor Gartner, is that all?
That's it.
So thank you. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a statement that, I noticed that from the community cleanup weekend a few weeks ago, there's still the odd garbage bags that might be tied to lampposts, citizens hoping that someone would pick it up. So if any residents see any of those garbage bags, that they can call Access Aurora and town staff will pick them up.
Thank you for that, Councillor Kim. Councillor Humphreys, any new business? You have new business?
Yeah, just a quick question.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I ran it by you and Councillor Thompson the other night, but I wondered if I can ask a director of bylaw, because I had the resident ask me again.
You can ask anything you like,
Through you, Mr.
Councillor.
Mayor, is there a rule or a bylaw on how early you can put your garbage out to the curb? There is a, I'll tell you why, and then you can help me with it. There's a resident in town, I won't name names or roads, but sometimes up to 4 days early or 5 days over a weekend, and they don't want to see the rows of garbage bags and blue boxes for. So just wondering, is there a rule for how early, or is it an etiquette thing, or?
Who wants this? Mr. Downey?
Me.
Mr. Downey.
I'm the garbage guy.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a rule.
Oh.
And so they're not allowed to put it out until 24 hours before the pickup. So that is, I think it's 24, is it 12? Yeah. It's usually 7 o'clock at night for the 7 o'clock pickup. And if it is out earlier than that, then the residents can contact us, and we coordinate our efforts with bylaw and have that garbage removed. They either take it back from their curb, or we coordinated now with GFL that we can dispatch a truck out to pick it up and charge them for that.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Mr. Downey, because this person was kind of distraught. It's been going on for a long time, and she tried to speak to the neighbor, and it didn't go well, so she doesn't want to speak to them anymore about it. I went by and I was shocked. It was 8 garbage bags and a bunch of other stuff, and I thought, you don't want to see that for 4 days. So
what I'll do, through you, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, what I'll do is I'll ask Rita to send out to all the members of council the regulations with
Perfect.
regards to putting it out. With that, then you'll also get her phone number, and if a resident is having concern, contact Rita, and she will take it from there.
great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gilliland, new business? Okay. Public service announcements. Start with you.
Time to get accessible. This year's National Accessibility Week is coming to Aurora from Monday, May 26th to Monday, June 1st. So don't miss out on this opportunity to take a look at accessibility at its finest. Visit one of Town Aurora's locations, learn about accessibility surrounding you. For more information, please visit aurora.ca/accessibility.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Humphreys, Public Service.
We are looking for Aurora residents between 12 and 17 years old to try out for Aurora Teen Idol. Register to complete before Friday, June the 7th. There are over $500 in prizes to be won. For more information, visit aurora.ca/Canada Day. Thank you. Looking forward to that.
Councillor Kim.
The New Beginnings Powwow is the perfect place to learn about the Indigenous culture and heritage that is an integral part of our country. Traditional drumming and traditional dancing will fill this event with excitement for the whole family. This event is on Saturday, June 1st from 12 to 9 p.m. at Lambert Wilson Park. For more information, please visit aurora.ca/powwow.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gardner.
This is a strange one.
It's a strange one.
Have you ever noticed foam rollers in the gym but didn't know what to do with them? Sign up for a session at Club Aurora on Saturday, May 25th for an interactive workshop about how to use foam. Foam rollers. Trained staff will show you just what to do.
That sounds like an exciting time. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Thompson.
The town of Aurora is thrilled to announce a new sponsorship partner with Desjardins Insurance. As a result, we now have Desjardins Days, where we'll now offer fun-free activities every second Wednesday of the month. For more information, please go to aurora.ca/Desjardins Days and find out what free activities there are.
You have one more? It's okay? Okay. Before I do my reading ones, we never did mention the outcome for the Run for South Lake. And I know that they're coming. I know, but I know that they're coming on the 28th at the next council meeting. But I think it's great to kind of speak to the fact that Aurora won the mayor's challenge. And, I'd like to thank everyone here at this table, staff as well, and anyone that was part of the team for the amount of money they raised. Our CAO raised an incredible amount of money in just, I think, like 2 days. So he did a great job, and so did everyone else. So, thank you, everyone, for what you did for our hospital. I appreciate it. I know the hospital does, and the community does as well. So, and I know Councillor Gilliland ran, Councillor Thompson ran, and I ran. I was exhausted after it, but it was great. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the least we can do to support our community and our hospital. So thank you, everyone, for that. And thank you, everyone who attended Pause in the Sark event this past weekend. It was a large turnout with many enthusiastic pet owners. And thank you to the town staff for organizing this great event for pet lovers. Actually, it was quite fun. And that aqua pool was aqua dog pool. The dogs were just jumping. It was actually quite exciting. And I know I'm taking up more time, and everyone kind of wants to get going. But there was one dog. It was actually quite funny. There was one dog right at the edge of the pool, and it was just sitting there staring. And they were throwing the ball, and they're doing everything they can to get him. And he was just shaking his head, saying, "Nope, not going in there." So that was pretty funny. No, it wasn't Coke. And thank you, everyone. And Canada Day is coming, and staff are looking for people that want to register their float, marching band, or walking group for the Canada Day Parade. The registration deadline is June 13th, so for more information, please visit aurora.ca/Canada Day. And with that, there's no more public service announcement. Bylaws, we don't have any. Closed session, nothing. Confirming bylaw. Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Thompson. I'll call the vote. That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Thompson, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.